What up, y'all? Welcome to the Black People Parenting Podcast, the number one podcast for Black parents. It's me, Dion Glad Dad, and it's been a minute since we have been here in this space with this type of content. This is just something that I wanted to do. I'll talk a little bit later about, I guess, the absence and where I've been and why we haven't been doing the podcast. But we decided that I decided I wanted to bring the podcast back because I felt like people were in need of the content and with some coaching and some coaxing from some folks. I felt like I was in a space where I could bring the Black People Parenting Podcast back. So we are here on this dope episode, and one of the people who has been inspiring me to bring the podcast back is this young lady. Now, she is one of the people who has been on the show before, but I thought it would only be right that we bring her back for this particular episode. Please welcome my good friend, my cousin, D'shara Nicole, to the Black People Parenting Podcast. Please, 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 please. Round of applause. Round
What's
of
up,
applause.
party people? You know I love you, cousin. Anytime you call me, I'm gonna show up, and so I'm honored to be here. You know your wisdom has helped shape who I am as a parent. Like that relationship we have, it
For
has
sure.
helped me get through some things, and so whenever you need me, I'm showing up for sure.
For sure. I appreciate you. So, one of the things that has been on my heart and on my mind during this absence from the podcast is just that it's how we show up as parents. And when it the idea of doing the podcast again and getting back on track with the podcast came to me, I wanted to talk about parenting from a space of survival and parenting from a space of thriving and the differences between the two. Because I feel like a lot of us were raised from uh, or with parents who were parenting from a space of survival. And a lot of us are doing the same thing, right? So I feel like it's necessary for us to begin to look at how can we parent from a space of like thriving, right?
Yes.
Because I think that's important. I think, you do a lot of things differently when you're in a mode of like when you're in survival mode as opposed to when you are thriving or when you are at least content, right? I was doing some studying of the word last week, and a couple of things that I was reading, a couple of them were about, how we can be need to be content sometimes because we have everything that we need. We have everything that God has provided for us. It's already there, things like that, right? So um I oftentimes think about how life would be different for me and for my children if I wasn't parenting from a space of survival at different times, right? Because there's been times in my life that I have been, I've had to parent from a place of survival. You know what I mean? Like money was low, or not being in a space where I was happy, or whatever, just feeling like I was having to rob Peter to pay Paul, all the things. And I don't think we should have to parent from that place. So I wanted to bring you on to talk about that, just because I think your journey as a parent, your journey as even as a child, like as someone who was raised in a family, and your relationship with your mother over the years, the fact that your father has passed away, similar to me, all of those things. And I think that all of those things play a role in a part of how we parent. You feel me? So let's kind of talk a little bit, and we're just gonna talk. Like this ain't really I don't. This not an interview. This is not. You know what I mean? It's just us talking. So let's talk a little bit about like your background and how you were raised.
Oof. First of all, I was raised in the '80s, in the early '90s,
Yeah,
so that's just
yeah,
something right there, just about being from Norfolk, or did spot to be exact where I'm from. Um, I'm the oldest of five children. My mom has five children. I have four brothers. Um, my circumstances was a little different from my mom's other kids too, because I have a different dad than everybody. And of course, my dad succumbed to his drug addiction when I was young. He was 10. So life for me, I wouldn't say it was all bad because I was afforded certain things that my peers didn't have, some of the people that I didn't grow up. So I knew that my life was different. And I tell this joke all the time, and people laugh at me, was when I went to sleepovers, I was the only one that had real pajamas. Like I
Mm,
knew that my life was good in those areas, but I also grew up, my mama got pregnant with me when she was 15. She had me when she was 16. So my grandma kind of raised us together. Like we were raised together. And so I think just going like the topic says, parenting based off of survival. I can only think that I was raised off of survival, not just because it was the crack epidemic and my daddy was on crack, but because I had a 15-year-old mom who was still trying to figure out how to be a young woman, how to be a mom. She hadn't grown into her own as a woman yet. And then you're familiar with my family dynamic. So I was also brought up in part by my uncle too, who was doing what he was doing. And I could remember being a little girl sitting on top of the DJ booth, like Uncle Fred got put out of school his first day of like ninth grade, I think, and he helped raise me. So I inherited a certain set of characteristics, some not so good. And that kind of shaped who I was as a young woman. So I think I've had a great balance of really great parenting and horrible parenting. But that's it in a nutshell.
right. So looking back now, because you're in your mid 30s, right? Mid 30s,
Yep,
early
36.
30s,
Yep.
36. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Looking back now, like when you see the way that, especially like parents in the 80s and 90s, because that's kind of what really started this train of thought for me, like thinking about like how our parents raised us in the 80s and 90s. And um like, I tell anybody, my mom had three jobs, and she was a single mother and all the things, and she, without a shadow of a doubt, was parenting in survival mode, because at that point, like you're surviving, like you're trying to make sure you do everything you can to not fall under. You're trying to make sure you do everything you can to be sure that your only son doesn't end up dead or in jail. When you look back now on those times, like in the 80s and the 90s, growing up, you know father wasn't there, like how do you think that kind of shaped you? Like, how do you think that kind of shaped who you became and who you are and all of those things?
It's like the core and the pulse of who I am, right? And so, like I said, I grew up in a house with four brothers. If you know me and you know my brothers, and it's still a mystery to some people, like if you find out that my brothers are my brothers, the story is y'all don't act nothing alike. Right? I come from whole southern nuts. And so for me, for me growing up, it was challenging because I didn't have anybody that I could identify with. I was always like an anomaly, not just because I was the only girl, but because I had a different dad than everybody, just because my moral compass was a little different. I'm a lot bolder, a lot more outspoken. So a lot of times I got labeled the black sheep or the bad child or the one that was hard to deal with. And I think it's directly related to my dad, not just passing away when I was in the fifth grade, but because even before he died, he was dead. Like he just wasn't
Mm,
there. He wasn't around. He was running the streets. He was getting high. And so I started to go through different things emotionally, mentally, getting diagnosed early. I believe I was in ninth grade when I got diagnosed with bipolar depression, and major depressive disorder. And I think if I would have knew more about my dad if he was there, because I always go out and I meet people that are like, you act just like your daddy. You remind me of your daddy. My dad was an only child, and my dad's mom was in my life all my life. And she would say, girl, you my son all over again. And so I just feel like that would have prevented some of the roadblocks and some of the things that I went through, just trying to change who I was, like elementary school, middle school, early. early parts of high school, I would say like ninth grade, I always fought with the fact that I was different than everybody else in the house. I got more beatings than everybody. I got in trouble more than everybody. And it was literally like, why am I like this and nobody else like this? And so I feel like self-identification is important when it comes to um life. And I feel the same way as I did about that as a child than I do as a parent. Like, yo, this is, I tell my son, like, this who your dad is, this what he's about, this what he does, this kind of personality he have. I'm quick to point out things in my son, like, oh, you get that from me, you act just like me in that regard, and you act just like him. I didn't have that in my house from my mom. So to me, my daddy was, I made up in my head who he was and what type of person he was. And a lot of times the ifs or the scenarios of who he was, his personality and everything that I created in my head, it ultimately led me into a place of like depression or the what ifs of life, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Now you talk about the mental health aspect of growing up, and I think as we all know or should know, growing up in a black household, like mental health was not a huge thing. But you said that you were diagnosed, you had a mental health diagnosis at an early age. Like, so how did that even look for you being diagnosed with depression? You said at 9,
No, I was in the ninth grade.
you're in
So
ninth grade. I'm sorry.
yeah, I was in the ninth grade. It was funny. I'm not even gonna lie. It was funny because I grew up people calling me crazy, saying I was crazy and stuff. So them taking me to the therapist only just made the therapist say I was crazy. But I never felt as if I was crazy. And even right now to this day, I see it as creative and innovative and bold. I'm gonna always say what I have to say. And I've always been like that as a child, but the diagnosis literally came, and my mom probably gonna cuss me out for this, but I've been cussed out before. Um, Me and my mama got in a fight, like a fist fight, and they called the police on me. And with going through the steps of that and the challenges of that, like the legal system with all of that, they took me to a therapist. I was telling her about my life, and she was like, sounds like bipolar depression, because when you're really mad, you're really mad. Like, I at the time I was experiencing like really high highs, and then it would be followed by extremely low lows. Like, there's like never in between for me. So they were trying to figure out how I was acting so much rage that I could actually do something like that to my mom. And I just felt like they didn't listen to the story in totality, if that made sense. So they diagnosed me, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny, but it did help, I guess.
So was your mom receptive to that, like the diagnosis, or was it just kind of like ain't nothing wrong with her, like we hear a lot of times?
No, they were calling me crazy the whole time anyway, but I did get on I did get on medication. She made me get off because the me that they knew, the me that everybody loved, the personality, the wit, the charm, when I got on the medications, when I got on the antidepressants, all of that left. And I was just like a shell of myself. Like, it would be moments where I would just drift off, and the me that everybody loved was no longer there. So my mom said I couldn't take the medicine no more. So, girl, do you want me to take the medicine or not? Um, but yeah, she complied with what the doctor said. And I'm grateful for my mom in that regard, is because I got introduced to therapy early. So me
Mm,
doing therapy as an adult is nothing to me. That's why you see me. I'm an advocate for therapy. I champion
mm-hmm,
therapy. For me, is God and therapy, is deliverance and inner healing. But I think it's because I was exposed to therapy young, and I was given an outlet to say what I needed to say, how I wanted to say it, and it did what I needed it to do. So I am grateful to my mom for taking me to her name was Deborah Reese. I'll never forget. She got on my nerves so bad, but that has helped me to become, if that makes sense.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So like, what do you think? Because I'm still wrestling with like the idea of like parenting through survival mode, right? And I know survival mode looks a little bit differently for, you know, everybody. I know it looks different for black and brown people. I know it looks different for those of us who have, a high level of stress. Like 41% of parents in a recent survey reported that being a parent is tiring, and it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think like 29 to 30% of those same people found it stressful most of the time. So, if you find something stressful most of the time, then 9 times out of 10, you're not getting joy out of it, right? So, what do you think it means to parent through survival mode, and what does it look like for you now as someone who has had your own child and started your own journey, and you have your own family and all those things? What does it look like to parent in a way that is uh, more so thriving than just surviving?
Yeah, so I think, like you said, we're all in survival mode in some vertical of our lives. Survival mode for one parent may be they got to rob Peter to pay Paul, and they can't think past this week, let alone thinking past the next 5 years or the next 18 years, creating a foundation for their child. And so, survival for one may mean I'm a parent that suffers from manic depression. Sometimes I don't even get out of bed, I don't even take a shower. So, my kid
Mm.
got to feed themselves. The child just gonna have to figure it out. I've never been the parent who was in survival mode because of finances, because again, just going back to the way I was brought up, I learned how to get things by ill-gotten means. By God's grace, I haven't had to do that in the last 11 years. But we ain't gonna be in survival mode when it comes to money or getting nothing to eat. We gonna eat, and you're gonna have everything you need. You're gonna have a roof over your head. But I have been that parent who has had bouts of depression where I would literally be in my room and wouldn't come out for 5 and 6 days at a time. I wouldn't even take no shower. My son would have to literally fend for himself. And now to being in that place where I haven't been there by God's grace in well over 7 years, I haven't been there either. And the difference for me, just going back to what I said, is a certain level. Healing is not just like this. You got to go through deliverance first, because if you think about it, even going back to the parent who's in survival mode because of finances, it's a spiritual thing. Like the Bible says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. People don't even understand that the reason they always broke, the reason they get paid today, the money gone tomorrow, they don't know what they did with it. The reason that their credit score is bad, the reason that their mom credit score is bad, grandma credit score, it's a spiritual thing. I'm pretty sure that a person who's parenting based off of survival, they get that from their mama, and their mama get that from their mama. Like, we got to start to look at the spiritual aspects of all of this. Mental illness is a spirit of heaviness. It's a spiritual thing. So we have to do the spiritual work first. And I'm speaking for myself and those like me who identify themselves as Christians, who believe in God. If you don't believe in that, you don't believe in it. Ain't got nothing to do with that. But there's a certain level of deliverance that needs to take place. That's through the fasting, that's through the prayer, that's through the going to church and doing the things that the Bible do to eradicate those demons and to rid yourself of those spirits. And then you have to follow up with that with inner healing, which is to clean up what the demons left behind. And that's the therapy. That's going to your focus groups. That's listening to these types of podcasts. Just filling yourself back up once you've gone through the delivering process. And with that, it means parenting from a place of thriving where I am now. It doesn't mean that I'm the perfect parent. It doesn't mean that I don't suffer in some ways, or my kid doesn't. It doesn't mean that we don't struggle. It just means that you don't suffer and you don't struggle as long. It means that when the challenges come, you know how to pivot without being frustrated, without going into a cave to retract or retreat. It means, oh, I feel that thing coming up today, my daddy death date coming up. I usually get depressed around this time. It means taking time to step away to fill myself up, so that way that my child could get the best version of me. And parenting based off thriving, a lot of people get mad at me when I say this, but it works for me. It has to be scientifically proven. My inner being is way more important than the inner being of that little boy. I have to be whole, I have to be healthy, and I have to be happy in order to be the best mom. I have to put myself first, my wants, my needs, and my desires, because he didn't ask to be here. So he deserves to have me at my best. So sometimes I have to tell my son, and we function well in that regard. Like, hey Jack, this is what I need to be my best self today. I'm gonna need you to chill real quick. And he understands that when I circle back in the next 24 to 48 hours or how long it takes, he's gonna have what he desires plus more. And I think a lot of parents get that wrong. Like, thriving as a parent literally means that you gotta fix yourself first. You gotta fix
Mm,
yourself first. You gotta do the work within yourself first, because if not, you're just going to create another mom or dad who parents their children based off survival because they got it from you. If you ain't doing the work, then how can you change the dynamic of the way you parent your children?
hmm. And you talked about faith, and you talked about your faith and your journey in faith. What other coping mechanisms or strategies do you think could be put in place to help folks who might be parenting from a place of survival and not from a place of thriving?
They got to kill the spirit of pride. They have to kill the spirit of pride. That's for one. Because a lot of our problems can be solved by opening up our mouth, and not just opening up your mouth to pray, but a lot of people deal with so much pride that they won't even call their friends, they won't call the other child's other parent, they won't call on resources, they won't reach out to the boys and girls club, they won't do anything or say anything to get help, because they see it as if they're inadequate because they're going to go to people for help. There's literally programs in our community that will help little boys, help you raise a little boy, mentor programs for little girls. There's different focus groups for parents. Do you know how refreshing it is to be able to pick up the phone and call someone and say, oh baby, let me tell you about parenting today. It's literally pride. A lot of parents are struggling and they're raising their kids based off of survival, and they go into a pit and they never come out. It's because pride prevents them from even speaking that they're in the pit that they're in, and they may need resources, they may need help. It could also mean calling that child daddy and say, I might need you to get this kid for 6 months so I can work on me, or calling your whatever your support system look like. But pride is I think it's a pride thing a lot of the times in our community anyway, because they don't want nobody to say, oh, she a bad mom or he's a horrible father, because they need help. Well, I think you're a bad mom and a horrible father if you choose not to get help knowing that there's resources out there. I think you're a
Mhm.
bad parent if you choose not to heal and you raise broken children. I think that's what a bad parent is.
Yeah, so I agree. I think, I think pride and I think ego comes with a lot of things, right? And I think one of the things for us in our community, like you said, is pride. It's the stigma of not wanting to be talked about, right? We don't want to be the one in the family that gets talked about. Like we talk about parents who might have kids who they think might have autism, or they think might be delayed in speaking, and instead of kind of reaching out and getting that kid the services, the assessment, the things that they need, they just kind of sweep it under the rug and they say, "Oh, ain't nothing wrong with that baby, ain't nothing wrong with him, ain't nothing wrong with her. She'll speak." You know what I mean? They do all of these things instead of getting the child what the child needs because they're so afraid of a label,
Mm,
right? And I think a part of parenting, you talked about the different ways of parenting um, through survival. Another way of parenting through survival is basically you're parenting based on other people's perception of you. You're
mm,
parenting because you are afraid of what your parents are going to say if they find out that you went and you put your child in therapy, or if you got your child on medicine for ADD or ADHD or depression. You're so afraid of what other people are going to say that you are literally surviving um, parenting because you are afraid of other people's perceptions of you as a parent, because nobody wants to be called a bad parent, and you're so concerned, with what people might say, that you end up not getting the child what they need, and at the end of the day, you end up being a bad parent, like you said, because you're not getting the child what
Exactly.
they need. Um, so, what role has family for you played in your journey and your role as a parent? Because we talked about support system. You talked about pride. So, what role for you has family played?
Um, my family has played a duality of roles. They've played roles that I never asked them to play, and it has caused harm. Um, but my family is also very supportive in the fact that if you need something for your kid, they stepping up. They coming. Like, we come from, my grandma, she 86, she's still driving, she's still getting us rides. She's still,
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my grandma the other day, she was like, oh, I done gave somebody my food stamp card, one of the relatives. I come from one of those types of families to where my grandma letting her other grandkids kids drive her car, use her car. We that's what we come from, right? So my family has helped in that regard, where I'll tell my son either no, I'm just telling you no, or not today. My son gonna get on the horn and call his grandma, and she gonna give it to him. He can
Mm-hmm.
get on the horn and call his uncles for something, and they gonna give it to him. So they have helped in that way. But when I challenge the system as we know it, that grandma raises the kids, take the kids, we know what that looked like for me. I made a conscious decision years ago, that wasn't going to be my story. I didn't want anyone raising my kid. I love all of the men in my family, but it ain't one in my family that I would want my son to be like. Um, so I knew that I had to break the generational curse of grandma raised the kids. Grandma do this while mama do whatever it is she wanted to do. And I met a little bit of resistance from that, but by God's grace, we over that, and we're in a situation where we're able to move forward. I think sometimes family could be a crutch because it becomes, some people build a codependency on the help of their family. And that could have easily been my story. That's easily been the story of my mom, because she know my grandma is coming. But they
Loudest ringtone I ever heard in my life.
no, it's like my son computer is crazy. But yeah, they have helped in ways, immeasurable ways, and I'm super grateful for how they step up in some of my moments of deficiency. So I'm super grateful for that. But I do know I don't want nobody to raise my child but me.
Right.
And you
Now,
know,
as a single mom, like, how do you manage um how do you manage self-care as someone who is like extremely aware of what your triggers are? It seems like you're extremely aware of what you need. How do you manage, like, what does self-care look like for you? Because I see people all the time, they get caught up in like the superficial self-care. I'm gonna get my hair done, I'm gonna get my nails done.
mhm,
That's
mm,
not really self-care, right?
it's pain.
Right, that's maintenance. So as a single mom raising a 16-year-old, how old are you now?
15. He's
15? Ooh,
yeah.
somebody getting old and it ain't me. How do you manage self-care?
I'm a forever scholar. I read a lot of books.
Mm,
I read a whole lot of books. I read a lot of books, from self-help books. I'm very, as Libo say, I stay rooted and grounded. Okay. I'm on prayer calls once a week. I'm fasting the first 3 days of the month, every month. I'm fasting. I'm staying in my Bible. That's what self-care looks like to me. Self-care to me also means I like to go on drives. I like to clear my head. I like to clear my thoughts. And then there's the typical, like maintenance things. But for the most part, I'm a forever scholar. Like I love reading books. I was sitting here, I journal a lot. That has proven to be like my best self-care regimen is to literally
Mm.
journal. And then of course there was therapy. My therapist fired me 2 3 years, late 2022. Yeah, so my therapist fired me 2 years ago, but if I ever need just like a drive-by therapy session or I need to get on the calendar, I'll text my therapist like, "Hey, can you squeeze me in for a little drive-by?" But that has helped too. So therapy, journaling, being in my word, and being a forever scholar, just like reading books, that really works for me.
Can you talk about journaling for a little bit, because journaling is something that I struggle with. Like my therapist has been asking me to journal probably for the last 2 years, right? And I've been resistant to it. And just recently, I decided, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a whirl. I'm gonna give it a shot. So I went to Target and I bought a journal probably about 2 weeks ago. The journal has not moved off my kitchen counter in the last 2 weeks. That joint is still sitting there. It's like decoration on the kitchen counter. Talk to me about what journaling looks like for you, and because I hear it works, I hear great things about it. I
It's good.
just I've not been able to get jiggy with it for some reason. But talk to me a little bit as someone who is not necessarily reluctant to journal. Just I'm struggling with it. So talk to me about kind of like, the process, the pros, the cons, and all that stuff.
Yeah, the process for me is literally like sitting on the couch with your doctor across from you, but instead you're releasing your own thoughts, whether they be good, they be bad, they be troublesome, whatever those thoughts are. You just journal it. You just write it down. I found a lot of times that releasing a thing, as long as I release it and I put it out there, that it no longer burdens me. It no longer troubles me. I was just like you when I first started journaling. I went and bought all these cute journals. I bought a whole bunch of different
Hmm.
colorful pens or whatever the case may be. And I would write in one day and then I'll leave it on the counter. Then I'll go back and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get another one. But when I tell you, cousin, the phone is my journal. I don't know if you
Mm.
can see this, but I journal a lot. I journal. This is literally what I do. And it
Mm.
goes back years of journaling. So I journal Bible study notes. I journal just like the other day. My journal prompt for Monday was I need to refocus my attention on my affections. Those are the thoughts that came to my head. And I just started journaling like what I need to take my focus off of and what I need to replace that time with. I literally journal. I journal notes to myself, just validating and affirming who I am, what my goals are. Bro, you be on threads. That's journaling. It's literally what you putting on threads on the paper
Right.
or in your
Right. Right. Right.
on your phone. But it has helped me in ways that I couldn't even explain. I go back to my notes and I do this a lot. I reflect a lot on my journal prompts from this time last year to see where I was last year to see where I am today. And that's a whole nother journal prompt like, yo, D, I'm so proud of you because this time last year you were stuck in this, you were having a hard time
Hmm.
out of it. But yeah, I would just journal from the phone because you probably have your phone in your hand all the time and then you have these thoughts or you have these different ideologies and it's like you might not have time to run to the notebook to write it down, but you could journal in
Hmm.
your phone. It's actually an app in the phone called Journal, but the Notes app in the iPhone works best for me because you can even put follow-ups to your journals. Like for example, I saw you
Mm.
put something on threads about how it's been challenging, just like getting the urge to create again. And you talked about that early on. That was a journal prompt, literally, and in the phone, you could put a follow-up to it, like you said, your birthday month is June. You could be journaling in your phone to say by June 15th, I need to produce 15 episodes. June 15th come, your journal prompt in your phone won't say, "Hey, show how many episodes you did." Like this, what you need.
Right. Right. Right.
It holds me accountable um to myself. And that's what I like about it. It allows me to release what's on my heart, what's on my mind, what God is telling me. I'm a big dreamer too. So I journal my dreams. I wake up out of dreams, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, sometimes full of joy, sometimes full of worry. I document my dreams because I don't want to forget them. I always want to give them back to God. But it was hard for me to do it on paper too. But I started doing it in my phone.
Do you start it off Dear Diary? I think
No,
that's what I'm. Okay.
no,
I'm, I
no.
think I'm stuck on that. I think I'm stuck on that. I
No,
just
it's giving very much well, like Moesha, dear Gary. Absolutely not.
right. I think that's where I'm stuck. That's really
Look,
what's getting me. Like I don't.
I'm looking at one of my journal prompts right now from the 7th that said, "Why do you keep doing it in the dark, girl?" Literally,
Right.
literally. Yeah, no, I don't start off with dear diary. I start off
Okay.
how I would start off anything. Hell no.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure. So I've lost my train of thought. I forgot I was about to ask you. So where are we going? So as oh yeah. Okay, I know. So as a parent, right? You are a single parent. You have been raising your son by yourself. Single black woman, living your life and really just doing everything that you can do to be sure that you provide for him, provide for yourself.
Mhm.
um what does what what scares you the most about parenting in 2024?
That he gonna get killed by the police.
Hmm,
Literally, that's it. I ain't afraid of
hmm,
nothing else. I'm not even afraid of that, but it's a worry of mine.
right.
It's a worry of mine. Outside of that, I don't worry too much. And it's easy for me to say it's very easy for me to say, man, that boy that leave out of my house every day, my son, you would think he raised up in a two-parent household. He's sharp. My son's sharp as a fool. He's sharp. He's smart. He wise. He's self-sufficient. Somebody inboxed me on Instagram and said, "Hey, your son on my flight. The way he moving through the airport in Atlanta is crazy to me. How I don't worry about my son, but I do worry about the world that's around him.
For sure.
Um, and he's like me in a lot of ways. He's very bold. He's highly intelligent. He gonna tell you how he feel. He gonna say it. He's sharp. So I do worry that and he also 6'3" is a 6'3" black boy.
Hmm.
And the only worry I ever have is that he don't have encounters with the police and they see him as this big giant and they kill him. But other than that, I don't really have no worries. Like literally, like the Bible say, cast all your cares upon me. I have given every I have given every ounce of doubt or worry that has related to my child to God. And it was a time where Jador, he always been all A, straight A student, but he started to battle with who he was last year before last, 8th grade, because he in 10th grade now, where he no longer wanted to be the token black boy. He no longer wanted to be the smart one in the group. He no longer wanted to hang with his Jewish friends. All his friends Jewish. And he went in home with the biggest niggas he could find. Boy was fighting and everything. He got banked one day, and then
He out there thugging.
yeah,
He thugging.
man, he was thugging. He walked to the restaurant. He got banked one day, then went back to lacrosse. I'm like, do you understand how dumb you look? Hanging with a bunch of N words. You got banked. Went to lacrosse with your Jewish friends, but I had to let him go through that. Like I understand he was trying to figure it out, but even in that case, going back to what we was talking about earlier, pride. He, I, my mama was on the principal Instagram page. She was like, "Yo, they got this program at the school." I called up school like, "Yo, y'all got a men's mentorship program." Jador McCray, they like, "Oh, we love Jador around here." I'm like, "Okay, well, look, ain't no man around here, ain't no daddy in the house. Sign him up for the program. What I need to do." And that program changed his life. And that boy ain't been in the fight ever since. So Yeah.
All it takes is one. All it
Mm.
takes is one. Like just all you gotta do is get banked once, and
He
that's
got
it. And then
one of
you
my
out.
fights in 1 week. No lie, it was crazy.
Are you, well, let me say this. For me, like I worry a lot, man. I worry a lot about, similar to you, like number one, raising a black son in this world. Of course, my son is autistic, right? So like how is he going to be received in this world?
Mhm.
Um, he's going to be one of those tall, husky black boys who could be perceived as a threat. I worry about that a lot, man. And what is the world going to look like for him in the next 15 years? Because the world that we grew up in is totally different. And I think, again, when you look at parenting in survival mode, um, that is something else, because quite honestly, white parents, this is something that they don't have to worry about. Like Asian parents don't have to worry about this. Like they don't have to worry about sending their kids out into the world as young adults and them not coming home because they get killed by the police, or they get locked up, or they get charged for something um, that they didn't do. And it's one of those things that you just, you look at life and you just like, it's not fair. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think that all we can do is, like you said, like raise them the best that we can, do the best job that we can, and prepare them to kind of go out in this world. Like me, I think you and I are different because like I'm a helicopter dad, man. I be on it. Like I be on it for, from not. I listen, man. Nyla in college, like, and that freshman year, like I was tracking her every move. Like I got her. I'm on the phone. I'm looking at her location. Okay, she here tonight, or she ain't here. Let me. Da, 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 da. And then, that next day, I go, where you was at last night? What you was doing? Like I'm that dad.
I'm that too, but I ain't, I'm not strict. So of course I got my son location on his phone. My son can't hang with nobody who don't have no foundation. Like any of his friends he hang with, like I've met their parents. I know their
Mhm.
parents. I know all the teachers. My son gets pissed off at me. I check Infinite Campus every 2 hours. I'll go up to the school with my moo on, to walk into class to be like, hey yo.
Embarrassing.
And
Embarrassing.
but that's me. But I'm not strict. I'm not strict because what happens is when you keep them kids,
For sure.
when he go to college, he gonna wild out. But I
Hmm.
develop a relationship with my son, almost like a consultative approach. Like he's allowed to ask me why, and I don't feel disrespected. Bro,
Hmm.
we had Six Flags in an Uber. I was at doing some work the other day, and I FaceTime him to tell him to make sure he let the cleaners know to do something in the living room. He in the barber shop. I'm like, bro, you at the barber shop? He like, yeah, I took my little cash. I'm at the barber shop. I like that he does those type of things. I would say I'm a helicopter mom because I'm the all knowing parent. What he doing, how he
Hmm.
feel. But he's comfortable with telling me certain things too. When he felt like he wanted to go out there and do, guess what he did? Yo, I think I'm ready. What I'm supposed to do? The girl did,
I remember. No, I remember. I saw the stories. I remember. I
yeah, like
remember.
So I get it. I'm a helicopter mom, but I just let him be. I know what it's like to not have a safe place in my mom. I know what it's
Hmm.
like to I know what it's like having a parent that does not know you. I know what it's like having a parent that you don't really know. And so I can't be that.
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting, man. Like how we um now are, the types of parents that a lot of us are in our generation. We are, I don't want to say necessarily more liberal, but I think we are okay with our children, having a voice. Like even, I posted a video on Instagram, I think yesterday, where Mace was kind of bossing me around a little bit. Like he was kind of, his tone was a little off, right? Um, and if that was the 80s or the 90s, like that's a smack in the mouth. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But for me, understanding that and being educated on the fact that, okay, when you have a child who has autism, they don't necessarily understand tones and they don't understand how the things that they're saying can be perceived, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is important for me to for us, right, in our family, in our household, to not necessarily try to bring him into our world and have him meet our expectations, but for us to kind of tailor our interactions with him according to his world and
Yeah.
where he is, right? Because that's what he needs. Like there's nothing wrong with him. There is nothing, he's not sick, none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to understand and adapt to how his mind works,
Yeah.
as opposed to always expecting him to come to our level and step into our world. And I think that that's what a lot of parents in our generation are doing. Like we're allowing our kids to have a voice. And I think when you stifle your children's voice, when you don't give them that opportunity to ask those questions, to say why, or to, you know, not be in that position where you say, oh, a child's place is seen and not heard. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like I don't subscribe to that. Like I
Yeah.
think that is how you open the door for kids to be molested, for kids to
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
bullied, and all of those things because they don't think that they have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, were you always someone? Do you think that you've always been someone who's had a voice?
Yeah, that's why they used to call me crazy when I was little. They ain't want me to have one, but I exercised it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my voice wasn't always valued, because we do come from that era where it's like a child is to be seen and not heard. But hey, let me tell you this, I'm not doing it. That's why I got labeled crazy, and that's why I was always getting in trouble. That's why I was always getting in fights, because I was able to self-identify at 12. And in anything that was in opposition of who I was, who I knew I was, it wasn't who I thought I was. I didn't struggle with I didn't have identity issues. I didn't have none of that. So that's how I got labeled crazy. It was because I won't lay down and taking it just because you my mama, or just because you my uncle or my aunt or my grandma, or because you my teacher. It's like, yo, that's not me. I've always exercised my voice, but my voice wasn't always respected. And when you're that way, it's easy for you to be labeled disrespectful. Oh, if you depending on who you ask, I'm the most disrespectful person in the world, and I have been since I was in kindergarten. But yeah, I've always been comfortable with expressing myself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
book. It's a book called Toxic Parents by Dr. Susan Forward. And it literally talks about how toxic parenting is that it's like parents make themselves out to be God, and it's this big thing where you really have to honor and you really have to obey, and it's like no voice above theirs. You're so small, like they govern you, they rule you, and there's like this fear factor that parents create. It's a really good book. I think everybody should read it, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I struggled with when my daughter turned 18, when she turned 18, maybe when she graduated from high school, probably when she went to college. When she went to college, I cried for 3 days straight. But one of the things that I struggled with once she, got to that age where she was kind of flying away and getting to the point where she was going out there on her own was wondering and thinking and feeling whether or not I did it right. And that's something that I had to talk to my therapist about. Like we hear about mom guilt and
Hmm.
all of those things, but there's something about getting them to that that high school graduation phase, and you think about, like, for me,
Yeah.
right, as someone who raised her the best that I could, not having the best relationship with her mom for many, many years, and going back and forth to court and doing all of those things. And it's just like all of the coulda, woulda, shouldas just came to mind for me. And it's just like, man, like I got her here, but did I do it right? Could I
Yeah.
have done more? And one of the things that my therapist told me in that moment was that, as parents, as humans, as people, we are constantly doing the best that we can in the moment that we're in with what we have.
Yeah.
And I that is something that I have taken with me, for the last 2 years. Now it'll be 20 in a couple of days. Something that I've taken with me for the last, um, 2 years. Do you struggle any with guilt in terms of parenting, Jador?
No.
Hell
No.
no.
It's a hard no, man. It's a hard no. I don't. Like, it comes with doing the work. It comes
Hmm.
with deliverance. It comes with the inner healing. No guilt, shame, or condemnation in the kingdom of God. Like, I don't suffer from no kind of guilt. And I have made some decisions that might need to be a part two, the whole baby daddy situation. But I have made some decisions, but no guilt. At the time, I felt like it was right, but like Proverbs 22:6 say, train up a child in the way that they should go. When they are old, they won't depart from it. No matter how far we go off the path, the foundation we set for our children is gonna always be there. Your daughter is the fruit of your labor, and that's another. Which scripture is it? What verse is it? That people will know you by the fruit that you bear.
Hmm.
When somebody say your name, they be like Showtime. I'm like, oh, my cousin. You know your name is directly related to how you raise that little girl.
Hmm. Hmm. For sure. For sure.
She is the fruit of your labor. Like, who you are as a parent shows in the woman that she grew up to be right here, right now, today.
Hmm.
What's there to feel guilty about, baby? What? Because what, feel guilty for what? You know what other girls her age doing? They had the same set of cards she was there. They probably
Right.
gave
For
her a
sure.
full fat churn. Ain't never stepped foot in the college. Don't know even know how to fill out the application. While your daughter was filling out college application, they was recertifying their food stamp. You ain't guilt for what? I don't feel guilty
Hmm.
about nothing. I'm a single mom. I've made choices, some not so good, some good, but the foundation is always there. My son's 15. He gonna start school in August, dual enrolled. I ain't never seen a 15-year-old 10th grader at pre-calculus math. I ain't even make it past
Mm.
algebra. What do I
Mm.
feel?
Me either.
What do I feel guilty for? I don't feel guilty about nothing. No, because
Mm.
when you sit in guilt, I tell people all the time, guilt will make you tilt, baby. That guilt be so heavy, you start tilting towards the left, you'll crash out so bad. Like, guilty for what?
Hmm. Hmm.
Guilt is of the enemy. Like, we have to, and I wish more parents were like this. Like, be okay with the decisions that you make. If you can't live with the decisions that you make as a parent, don't make it. Don't make it. Because when you suffer from guilt, guess what? Them kids know that they're gonna get older, they're gonna use that to do whatever they want to do to you, get whatever they want to get from you. It becomes a back and forth. I don't feel guilty about nothing, baby. Not nothing. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay, so no mom guilt. Got it. No, absolutely, absolutely, positively, no mom guilt. Okay, listen. I need to jot that down, because there's I be, again, like, I don't know, man. Just looking back, like, there is, a certain part of me that just wonders, right? Like, did I do it right? You know what I mean? And I just, I reflect on that a lot. Probably not as much as I did when she first, um, turned 18, because now, and I think you'll discover this too. Like, once your child turns 18 and goes, into that next phase of life, it's a different type of parenting, right? And I had to get there to understand it. It's no more like, when Nyla turned 18, she still does. Like she still would ask my permission, like, can I go here? Can I do this? But
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a guiding type
Yeah.
of thing. And it's more of a like, all right, well, now you're learning how to navigate this ship on your own. The difficult part for me was guiding, stepping with her into that part of life while also raising a toddler. Now you don't have this problem. Also raising a toddler. You know what I'm saying? Because raising a 4 or 5 year old at that time, in this generation is totally different than raising her when she was 4 or 5. So it's almost like you have to um spread the parenting over two different generations. And it's interesting to watch and to see and to experience. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? People ask me all the time, like, do you want more kids? I tell them, hell no. Like, why would I?
Yeah, no, it's enough for me.
Okay, that was my question. Are you? I mean, you seem to have done so well so far. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you want another one?
No,
I mean,
he 15 going on 55. Why would I put myself through that? And then the next
mhm.
one might not turn out to be so great. Like, mm-mm, mm-mm. Get somebody else to do it. No, but and it's crazy because I do not want to have any more children, but I do love kids. Primarily like the teenagers, the young adults. I have gained children through relationships that even when I quit their daddy, the kids don't want to quit me and
Mhm.
they're still around and I help rear those children. Jador is in the rising individual student of excellence program at his school. I go to all of the meetings and one of his peers in the group literally walked up to me and they all got mentors and then there's just me. I'm Jador's mom. And everybody just say I'm so cool. And one of the little boys walked up to me and he said, Miss Jador Mama, can you be my mentor? I'm looking like, what little boy? Sure, I got you.
I
You know,
got you.
I
Say
don't
less.
say less, but I don't want no more kids, man. I never wanted kids, period. I got stuck with him. I
Mm,
say it all
mm,
the
mm,
time. I know for a fact that God gave me that little boy. And that's why I
mm.
cultivate him the way I do. That's why I love him the way I do. That's why I'm hard on him the way I am. That's why I parent. Like he drive me crazy, but it gives me so much joy, like being his mom. I know God gave me that little boy. Just the way I
Mm.
felt that I was pregnant and the way I was moving, like I know God gave him to me, and who am I to neglect or
And
mishandle?
who's to say he won't give you another one?
Nah, that's
I'm
dead.
just I'm
If
just
he
saying.
do, if he do, but I don't.
I know it's a scripture you can pull out somewhere. Like, be
If he,
fruitful and multiply.
yeah,
Come on.
like I did that already, and I multiplied times one. And look, this I'm glad you brought that up about scripture because when we talk about parenting from survival and parenting from thriving, parenting from survival is not of God. It's not of God. There's
Mm.
strategic error in there. You know why? The Bible gives us specific instructions on how we are supposed to be fruitful and multiply after we get married. We are supposed to have kids when we're married. We're not supposed to get married until we know what our purpose is. Marriage is not about love, it's about purpose. If you and your spouse are in purpose, on purpose, and you're edifying the kingdom together, you're not surviving, you're thriving. Therefore, that baby you gonna have, you're not gonna parent that child from survival. We parent from survival because we out of order. We out of order.
Mm.
So if God send me a man and we get married and we have a baby, then let's have at it. But until then, I'm gonna keep being what Psalm 22:6 tell me. I wish people would read the book of Psalm. It's literally about being a parent, but Psalm 22:6, that rod and that staff, they comfort me. That's parenting in the scripture. The rod is to correct and the staff is to direct. I'm here to correct my child and I'm here to direct him in the way that he's supposed to go. Baby, that's what my word tell me that I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'm gonna do. and it ain't gonna be from a broken place. Because when my son step out in the world, whether I'm here to see it or whether I'm not, when he go get married and he have children, they are going to be a product. They are going to be the product of grace personified. They're going to be the product of wholeness. I ain't we ain't, my son gonna go out there. He gonna be a good man. He gonna know how to love with his heart, his mind, his body, his soul. I'm not sending my son out there in the world to damage nobody's daughter. I'm not sending my son out there in the world to create a bunch of broken homes. He gonna get him a nice woman. He gonna get married. He gonna raise his children in the house. He ain't gonna have babies over here, babies over here, babies over here. That's I'm raising somebody's husband. You understand what I'm saying? I ain't no, no, all that other stuff. I don't care about it. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Nope.
So we'll end here. How's that? We'll end here.
This was good. I love talking to y'all. Glad Dad podcast.
This is but we'll come back though. We'll do this again because I have another topic that I want for you to tackle. But this was good. This was good.
And it was real impromptu. Tell these people how you set this up and said in 10 minutes we gonna go live.
Yeah, it was definitely the spirit leading me to say, let's just do it. And we did it because again, like I told you, I don't know how I'm gonna feel tomorrow. So today I was in the spirit and I felt like this needed to be done. And I felt like I was actually at a birthday party with Mace when the idea came to me. And we initially started talking about it. I was like, yeah, we gotta get this done. Because I didn't want this opportunity to slip by because we had spoken about me getting back in the podcast space and us having another conversation, and it just kind of felt right.
It was
so yeah. So we will do this again. Maybe we'll turn it into a thing. I don't know. Maybe we'll turn it into a thing.
You know where my mind was going. We got to turn it into a thing. Even if I got to fly to Atlanta and we do this whole whatever. Yeah.
Maybe we turn it into a thing.
We should. I love you. I appreciate you. I love the family. Send my love and God's grace be unto you. You know I'm gonna be checking.
Appreciate it. Keep me lifted in prayer, okay?
Always.
That 6-year-old, he running me ragged.
I got a gentle giant running me ragged. It's cool.
All right, cool. We appreciate you. Y'all keep checking out the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, on all the podcast platforms, YouTube, all of that. And I don't know what next episode gonna be, so I ain't gonna tell you we'll see you next week and nothing like that. But I'm back. I'll say that I'm back. All right, we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.